Barbara and Jill, I'm so glad you're able to join us this evening and meet with Dr. Ferguson. I cannot recall if you were on in the fall when she had delivered her discussion previously on coping with cancer, but we wanted to start delving in a little bit deeper in, I guess you could say, a little bit more subtopics that I think hit home for so many people. And this was an area that several people had said they would really like to hear more of, because, you know, who isn't trying to manage stress and balancing priorities? And I think that goes for us at any age, any time in our lives, just in general. So I'm so grateful, Dr. Ferguson, you're able to join us this evening and touch on this topic and see what we can get out of the conversation.
Thank you. And Vaso, again, thank you for your amazing work, you know, bringing this community together and offering, you know, not just education, although education is important, but all kinds of ways for people to develop ways to deal with stress, as well as all the things in their lives. So thank you. Let me just ask you, and Barbara, I don't know if you want to come off mute for a minute, but since we're a very small group here, what would you say are the major stressors for you at this point? I mean, Vaso's right. We are surrounded by stress, but I think it's also useful to just take a moment and kind of think about what feels most stressful. So Jill, do you have an answer for that? What feels most stressful for you?
Yeah, I do. I think, and I've been thinking about this more because I have my 1-year scans on Thursday. Just the possibility of recurrence, or because I'm very high risk now for rectal cancer, colon cancer. So, you know, these past couple of days, I think starting, it was yesterday, Monday, the closer I get to the scans, just, you know, I mean, I have a strong faith and I know whatever is going to be. I have no control over that, but still it's in the back of your head. Like, you know, could this possibly come back? Every time I get a little twinge or a little ache here or there, you know, you just can't help it once you've been through it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Barbara, I don't know if you feel like chiming in or if you just want to listen. I can see you're sort of off screen and on mute.
Yeah, I'm here now. I had to find my unmute button.
Okay. Thank you.
I had my episode of cancer. I had a lung tumor, right upper lobe, removed in August of last year. And then I had a cancer in my mouth, and that was removed in October. That was pretty bad. The lung was a piece of cake compared to the mouth cancer. So I kind of agree with the other person on here that it's constantly in the back of your mind, especially the lung. I don't even think about much, but the mouth is like always there. If I eat something and, you know, it hurts, or, you know, it's very concerning. I'm still seeing the physician every 3 months. And I just had another CT scan of my neck and my chest, and thank God those were okay. So yeah, I think it's really stressful, and I don't think people can understand that unless you've actually gone through it. That it's always there. You know, wake up in the middle of the night and you think, you know, how long is this going to be? Am I going to be okay for? And I'm older. I'm like 70. I just turned 79. So, you know, I'm getting up there in age also. So it's a combination, but I think stress is a very big worrying about reoccurrence.
Absolutely. And what both of you have really identified is that this sort of trifecta of stress, which has to do with fear and uncertainty, which is like, what's going to happen next? Is it going to happen? The ambiguity of not being able to predict what's going to happen, and worry. That fear, stress, worry, ambiguity, all of that really, I think, is the cluster that's really the heart of stress. And you all have it, with the volume turned way up. So what I'm going to do is share my screen for a minute, because what I want to talk about is some of the ways that we can address stress and what stress is. So the first thing I want to remind us all is that stress is not just an idea of the mind. Stress is real and it happens in our bodies. So what you're saying about is, the ideas or the thinking about it, or it's always in your mind, it's also always in your body. And that chronic stress is in fact what we know to be the most damaging for us. That sort of constant worry or uncertainty or ambiguity. And what research has said is that what stress does, it creates cognitive, emotional, and perceptual impairment. So on top of what happens with your treatments and the medications that you're on, stress also impairs us cognitively and emotionally. And it's a physiological state that leads to increased cortisol and adrenaline, again, which that constant cortisol and adrenaline in our systems that revs us up is very, very hard on us. And the other thing that I learned recently that was fascinating to me is that when we are stressed, it stops neurogenesis in the brain, which means we don't create those new stem cells that help us learn new things. So if you're feeling like it's hard for me to learn something new, hard for me to remember new things, hard for me to take in information like that my doctor is giving me or that I'm learning, it's hard for me to retain that, and it's hard for me to make decisions, that all is a result of stress. And so if you think about what's happening in your personal lives and in your bodies with your own medical diagnosis, and then you think about the stress that is around us collectively because of so many events and so much uncertainty and worry and fear, you can feel the sort of magnitude of what our bodies are registering. So let me just ask, any questions about that or any sort of sense, does that resonate?
I think whereas the number one, it's the chronic stress, constant annoying stressors. And for me, that fear of recurrence, I mean, even if I'm not like consciously thinking about it, when I like start to wind down or something, it always kind of like, especially this week, kind of like creeps into my thoughts, and you have to kind of stuff it down. Right, because it's not going to do any good to worry about it, but that's easier said than done sometimes. So
absolutely. And of course, anniversaries, doctor visits, all those things, again, are our bodies and our memories are registering that. So it's not that there's something like I should try to push it down. The reality is it is with you. So the question is, how do we begin to sort of help ourselves deal with that overload of stress? How do we help ourselves? How do we help our bodies, our minds, and our spirits? So, those of you who remember sort of high school biology, when we talked about human anatomy, know that the autonomic nervous system has two main branches. One is the sympathetic, and that's really what we're talking about here with the memory, the fear, the activation. It's the accelerator, and it's what really pushes our bodies to release the hormones that are fight or flight, that get us into action, but also have a lot to do with fear. So sometimes we feel like we're stewing in some of the hormones that are reacted. The sympathetic branch of our nervous system is the accelerator. And we get, people use that word, we get triggered or we get activated or we get pushed And we feel the fear, we feel the worry, we wake up in the middle of the night, our heart is pounding, or it's hard to breathe, or it's hard to think. That's all the sympathetic reaction. The other branch of the nervous system is the parasympathetic, and that is the part of our nervous system that is the brake. It's the slow down. It's the relax and digest. It's where we're co-regulated and we feel at peace. We feel like things are going to be okay, or I can handle what's coming. The parasympathetic is that part of our nervous system that allows us to sort of rest and be calm and be out of the sympathetic. So we can feel going between those two branches of our nervous system. And although these are autonomic, which means they happen a little bit below conscious control, we also know there are ways that we can recognize when the accelerator gets pushed, and that we can begin to help ourselves shift to the brake. And there is some research that indicates that when we can shift to the brake, we can downshift not just worry and overload, but also inflammation, that kind of constant rev up, and we can be in a state where I think we were really designed to be. There are a lot of researchers who say living in that more parasympathetic state is something that is really more who we were designed to be as human beings, occasionally going into sympathetic when we needed to get motivated, when we needed to get accelerated, when we needed to fight, or we needed to flee, or we needed to deal with something. And then we come back to baseline. But what happens to us when we're dealing with something that's frightening and ambiguous, or where there's a lot of worry, is we stay way over in the sympathetic state more than we need to. So what my hope tonight is that we'll talk a little bit more, begin to feel a little bit more in your own bodies, in your own lives, in your own experience about what is it to shift from that activation to the break and to the rest. So a book that has been very meaningful to me, and a teacher who's been very meaningful to me, is Rick Hansen. And he wrote this book called Hardwiring Happiness, which I think is it's an unfortunate title, but he really begins to talk about that shift. And he talks about it in terms of two colors. First, he talks about our basic needs. Our basic three needs as a human being are to feel safe, to feel what he calls satisfied and what I call meaningful, and to feel connected, to feel like I'm not alone. That those are our three basic needs, that I'm essentially safe, that I find my life and the way I am to be meaningful, I'm satisfied, things feel good to me, and that I feel connected to others. I don't feel alone. I think one of the things that I've observed with my clients with cancer and other chronic illnesses, that safety is one of the hardest things to feel. How do I begin to feel safe when I have that worry about recurrence, when I have that worry about side effects, when I have that worry about my future? So one of the ways we can help deal with that is to also dial up the sense of my life is meaningful. I have things that are important to me, that I enjoy, and I feel connected to others. So let me pause there for a minute again and check in with you. So how does that resonate with your understanding of that feeling of when we feel some kind of sense of safety or trust, some kind of sense of meaningfulness, and some kind of sense of feeling connected to others, if that helps you activate that sort of calmer space? What would be your reaction to that?
I think that's true for me. When I have a group of friends that, of course, are aware of what happened, and I also have a friend that just found out she has breast cancer. So her and I have been communicating, and she's going through it. I've gone through it, although I didn't have treatment, but I have found a lot of comfort talking to her and my other friends also. At first I was kind of leery talking about it. I didn't want to tell anybody what was going on, I just, I wasn't sure what their reaction would be, and I knew it would upset me to talk about it. So I just kind of didn't talk about it a lot at first. But now I think I feel a little more comfortable saying, hey, I had cancer, and, you have to deal with it. And it's just part of life, I guess, especially at my age. You never know what tomorrow was going to bring. So, yeah, I think talking with friends and actually trying to be a little more open about it is helpful.
It sounds like that really helps you feel that kind of connected sense that you're not alone. And there's even some emotional safety in that, it sounds like.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Jill, how about you?
So like the support system that I have, that I had when I was going through treatments, I always felt safe, and I still always felt connected. But I had been working one job, and I decided that it was time to leave there because it was like, and not that I need to talk about it all the time. But it's kind of like once my treatment stopped, like they just kind of acted like, oh, okay, well, she's all better, blah, blah, blah. And that wasn't the case. Yes, I was declared NED in November, but there was still side effects that I was having. And so the job that I have now, the ladies are great. When I first started working there, I started on a Monday and we had a staff meeting on Tuesday. So I was able to, we all were sitting down in the conference room, and I got to share a little bit of my story with everybody. So everybody, is aware, my hair doesn't always look like this, or, whatever. And I'm comfortable, and they always ask, how I'm feeling, whatever, and they know that the scans are coming, so they know that I'm a little bit stressed. So there is safety there, I think, for me. And then the connectedness, which I have that at home with my support system also. Satisfaction, that really doesn't like resonate for me, because I had a sense of satisfaction about everything I went through when I was declared NED. I don't have that right at this point, only because going into my yearly scan, I don't think I'll feel that satisfaction until I know what the results are of that. So,
yep. Absolutely. And I don't even love his sense of the word satisfaction. I think some of it is about meaningfulness. If we can find meaningfulness in our work, in our relationships, in where we are in life. And some of it is, I'm hearing both of you talk about the meaningfulness of these relationships. So it's not just that you feel connected or safe, but they also have meaning for you. And Vasco, I don't know how this connects for you, but of course I think of what you're providing as having, enormous meaningfulness in the work you do with Lending Hearts.
It gives me a lot of meaning, to take something that we went through and kind of turn it around, to see how that resonates with other people, because I'm constantly learning, I think, from everybody else as well and their experiences. And I've had my own health issues. I have a heart condition. So even though it's not cancer, those stress levels when I go for doctor's appointments or the next procedure and things like that, I completely, I can connect on it at a different level. So it's meaningful to me, because we all share something.
Right.
And that, I think there's something meaningful in this community of sharing as well. So it's both, there's a safety here, there's a connection here, and there's a meaningfulness. Yeah. So what Dr. Hansen talks about is when we really can sort of be in that, sort of sink our roots into that, there's a kind of a calmness or a peacefulness, and that when we can shift out of that sympathetic activation, which is about that fear and that worry and that uncertainty, which is natural, but to not live there, but to help ourselves sort of shift, to feel our nervous system shift, not just in our minds, but in our bodies, into this other area. He calls this the green zone. That when we have that sense of peace and hopefulness and calmness and connectedness, and it doesn't have to be all of those things. It could just be one of those things. You know, you wake up and, you know, we were talking earlier even about the weather. We wake up and we feel like there's something beautiful in nature today. And I'm just going to allow myself to feel that. That allows us to be in that green zone. Or, you know, when you come through a test that was a concern and there is a result that's okay, you sort of that relax into the green zone. Or I'm with somebody I love and I relax into the green zone. That place where we can allow our nervous systems and help our nervous systems move into that is actually very sustaining for us. And it's the opposite of the stress zone. So if you think about a moment, think about a time recently when you were in that green zone. You know, when was a time when you sort of come into your body and come into your memory and come into yourself? When was a time when you felt in the green zone that you would identify?
I guess I felt, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think for me, most recently would have been this morning when we went to yoga class.
Uh-huh.
And I, you know, with the breathing and just the little bit of stretching that I could do, very dimly lit, smelled really nice from diffusers going, and just, you know, the soft, gentle music playing. I was able to just kind of like get out of my head for a little bit for that hour that we were there, and really just not think. Even at the end of class, when you just lay there and listening to her voice and how she walked us through the breathing and everything. Those are the kinds of things that I need to do periodically to get myself back into that green zone.
Right. And as you describe it, I can feel that, you know, what it is to be in that kind of environment that allows your body to relax. And as you say, to kind of get out of your head and be in that space.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because I think, you know, I mean, not that I'm always stressed at home, but, you know, you have the TV on, the news is playing, all the garbage that you hear that's going on today. There's just so much. And, you know, when I'm at work and dealing with clients and, you know, this one is sick or their kid is sick, or, you know, there's just always something but for that hour this morning, it was nothing. And I was able to get out of my head and to just, you know, and that hour went way too fast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, my green zone is when I'm with my 3 grandchildren. I don't think about anything else because they're 3, 7, and 9. You don't have time to think about anything else. And then I just had a recent couple of days ago a repeat scan, and I think afterwards I was in the green zone. I said, well, at least I'm safe now for at least a month or so. Maybe I can relax and quit thinking about this for a while. So yeah.
Wow, absolutely. Also, how about you? What's a green zone for you?
This is really a thought-provoking one. I feel like I have different kinds of green zones, if that's even possible.
Absolutely.
I love to bake and cook. So sometimes when I'm just in my element and doing that, it allows me to just shut my brain off and take comfort in being in the kitchen. But then I also love getting up, not that I love getting up early in the morning, but having time before everybody else wakes up where I can get in a walk or do some kind of exercise. So I think that that physical activity helps me to start my day. But I also really love just the peace. I'm in a green zone when I go to church, or most recently I was walking with one of my kids on the beach, and just there's nothing around other than the sounds and the smells, and I just take such comfort in that. And then just then at the end of the day, sitting on the couch with the kids and saying like, oh, the day is done, we did it. We're crawling into bed and like, I made it. I didn't know if I'd get here again, but I did it. I know it sounds extreme, but I love crawling into bed at night.
Part of my green zone is crawling in bed at night. There's just that feeling of, you're right, like we can let it go. Yeah. So one of the things I love about what even just three of you share is the varieties of ways that we can help ourselves be in the green zone. And one of the things that has just really struck me about Rick Hansen's work and the research he talks about is that we were meant to spend like 80 to 90% of our time, our bodies are wired to be in the green zone, way more percentage than we allow ourselves to be in our very hyped up, worried, when you talk about the news or you talk about all the things around us that are worrisome, from the economy to, to violence, to global disruption, all the things that are constantly a drumbeat of, things are bad, things are bad, things are bad. That to help ourselves be in the green zone is really an act of incredible importance. And to help our bodies know that we're okay, that things are okay, that in fact, things in some ways are really good. I love being with your grandchildren, being with your children, being on the beach, being in nature, having that sense at the end of yoga that this was just a glorious moment that I can just savor. All those green zone things really, really matter. So he contrasts that with what we were just talking about, which is the red zone, right? Which is where we spend a lot of time. And that's this stress place. Whether the stress, the stresses come at us in so many ways. And one of the things I like about this illustration is it really indicates what the impact of stress is on our whole system. It's not just a mental thing that we feel kind of anxious or wrapped up. It's happening in our bodies. And so it's really imperative that we help ourselves, again, move into the green zone and create regular and reliable and a variety of practices that help our body move into that and let go of the stress or move into a different part of our nervous system from the stress. So we remember that when we activate that sympathetic branch of the nervous system, that fight or flight, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing that we have it. We need it to get out of bed in the morning. We need it to mobilize and to accomplish things. But when we repeatedly activate it, when it gets activated over and over again, then we have these issues, that less creativity, it's more difficult for us to deal with complex tasks and to show up to do the things we have to do. One of the things I found really interesting is that kind of repeated stress even reduces our field of vision. They've done studies that show that our peripheral vision, which is usually, way out here at about 180, comes way in to about here. Our peripheral vision narrows. And so both literally and metaphorically, it's harder for us to see more solutions or to see a broader field when we are that kind of stressed. And of course, as you all know, all too well, it also leads to a lot of fatigue. So it's imperative for us to practice the green zone. So one of the ways that is talked about by some researchers is that this is the green zone that activates our parasympathetic is what we need to thrive and to flourish. And I would add to heal. I think healing comes from this activation of the parasympathetic, both physical healing, emotional, because one of the things you've talked about is the healing of your mind from the worry and the uncertainty. And the things that help us emotionally move there, there's been a whole list of things that are that have some research behind them that help us activate that part of our nervous system, that green zone. Awe is one of them. I love that, Voss. So the end of the day, kind of awe, I got here, right? The awe when we look out at a beautiful sunset, the awe when we see our grandchild learning something new and we think, this little person, look at them go. There's just awe there. Gratitude, the gratitude for the lives we have, for the people we love, for the way things have come together, gratitude for your friends and your connections, your healthcare team, a lot of places for gratitude, the places that bring you joy. Again, that all of these things, these emotions help us activate that green zone. Obviously, love. Love is, I think, love and hope are the greatest connectors that take us into that place. And I would suspect that a good scan helps activate that sense of hope and hopefulness. There's a future. I can begin to feel a future and see a future. Enjoyment. What are the things that you enjoy? And they don't have to be big things, right? And sometimes it's just that beautiful cup of coffee in the morning. Sometimes the enjoyment is something unexpected that happened during the day. Relaxation and hope. And interestingly enough, curiosity can help us be in the green zone. Being curious about something new. Jill, I think when you show up at the yoga studio today, there was some curiosity there about what is this going to be like? And that activates a part of us that I think gets overlooked because variety and not doing the same thing every day, right? Or not having to have the same habits, but a curiosity of a different way to go or something I haven't seen before. I think this was the variety and curiosity got so suppressed during the pandemic when every day began to feel like every other day. But again, how do we put some novelty and some curiosity and some variety into our systems? Because that also helps stimulate this green zone. So as I go through this list, what occurs to you? What does that stimulate in you? As you think about your own life.
So for me, gratitude is a big thing. Of course, like I had stated before, I have a very strong faith, and I am, grateful that, and I don't know how to want to say this. So like when my parents both had cancer, like I walked through it with them, but I didn't know what they were experiencing or what they were going through till I went through it myself. So even though you have a support system in the form of, other human beings that you live with or, deal with, work with, the gratitude for me that, the Lord was always with me. And, and I always felt loved. The time when I was going through treatments, it was really tough for me. So there wasn't, in that 6 weeks, there really wasn't like a whole lot of enjoyment in things, but, just the hope of knowing that, the first thing that my surgeon told me that it was not a death sentence, that they could take care of it. So I had that, hope there. And then, just so now that's all said and done, I can basically, trying to find a new normal, I can recreate myself. So like the curiosity of, ooh, what can I do? Or where will I be in a month or 2 months or 6 months? So I can resonate with a lot of those words. And I mean, I do have, now that all of that is in the past and I'm not hurting anymore and I'm not sick, there is joy there. And I do have love within my family. So, and I do enjoy my family. So, I can resonate with a lot of most of these words actually. So.
Wow. Thank you. And on another level, we were even talking at the beginning about the curiosity about what your hair was going to look like.
Yep. Yep. Here it is. I know it's kind of dark in here, but it's there. Everybody seems to like it short like this, which is a beautiful thing. But, we always look at ourselves and are very, I don't know what the word is that I want to use, but when I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh God, look at this hair, but then somebody an hour later will say, wow, I really like your hair. What made you cut it that short? And I always have to say, it was not my doing, I just, and people, I found a lot of things because I'm like perfectionist, OCD, everything, like I don't adjust to change well. So this was a great lesson for me. This was a great life lesson. Not that I wanted to go through it, but it was a great life lesson for me. Greater appreciation for a lot of things in my life now. And I think it strengthened my faith more so than if I had just gone through that period last year. You really, I have such an awesome church family, and they set up a meal train. They helped pay rent a couple months. And then I did have to have a hysterectomy March 31st. I had a total hysterectomy. So again, meal train. What do you need? What can, and then the new job that I got is very humbling, working with the women that, homeless or domestic violence survivors, drug addictions. Everything has just been so humbling. It's like sometimes I just think to myself, like where I was before and my state of mind or the way I would think about things and how much better it is now from having that experience. I mean, not one time did I ever say, why me? Because for 54 years, I was healthy. I never had any issues. So, I just thought to myself, well, why not me? I've watched everybody else, illnesses or cancer, or heart disease or whatever. So why not me,
Wow, thank you. And it also feels as you're speaking, I just feel such deep, that sense of meaningfulness, that you really have created meaningfulness for yourself. And some of it is by these attributes, whether it's gratitude or awareness, curiosity. Thank you.
I figure, I've been given a second chance, and my mom didn't get a second chance. My dad, so many people I know that did not get to even ring the bell because they couldn't finish treatments for whatever reason. So in fact, the day I had my last treatment, when I rang the bell, I made the comment, the staff of the cancer center was there. And I said, this isn't for me. This is for all the people that couldn't ring the bell, and it just makes me, I just see life so differently now and just appreciate things. I mean, financially, it was a real kick in the teeth when I couldn't work when I was on treatments and this and that. But you know what? You learn to adapt and overcome. That was my motto through the whole thing. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? What what these words about thriving and flourishing, we need to survive. That's that sympathetic part of us, but activating and really living into this green zone, this parasympathetic, where we need to thrive and flourish. Any other thoughts about your own life?
Well, I guess I think about the word gratitude. I have 3 sons, and when I found out that I had cancer, the first thing that they all said was, "You're not going to go through this alone. We're going to be here with you." And I only have 1 son in Pittsburgh, and my other 2 sons are out of town. And unbeknownst to me, they took like a week's vacation, and they came home, and I had surgery, and it was wow. that was a big time gratitude, I think. And to my husband too. I mean, he gave me so much support, and I was such a the B word for so long, because I was just so upset, and I shouldn't. I mean, I lived for like 75 years with relatively very little health problems. And then you would think that would make it a little easier to accept when something like this happened, but it was difficult. But I think gratitude and love of my family got me through it. And my sister called me every day, and everybody was sending me flowers, and just little things like that really helped.
So what you're both describing so beautifully is a very rich experience. There's one way to talk about the green zone as if it's just this sort of simple thing, but what you're really giving a lot of texture to is that this is a very rich place when we can allow ourselves to be in it, not just mentally, but spiritually, emotionally, and physically, to take in the love, the gratitude, relaxation, curiosity. That's what really makes a difference for us. And it is the strongest antidote to stress, is being able to help to recognize when our nervous systems are activated in that fear and worry and uncertainty, which are the hardest places, and then to take a breath and to help ourselves move into this experience of the green zone. So there's been a fair amount of research about the practices that actually help us be in this green zone. And so I wanted to go through this, and we've already named a number of them, but to know that these practices have a research base to them, and the more we can build them into not just an occasional experience, but into our ordinary everyday life, and hopefully several times a day. To overcome the stress reaction, it takes several positive reactions to overcome the stress reaction. It's not just a one-to-one, because our bodies are primed to be aware of danger and to be aware of things that could cause us harm. And so to, again, get into that green zone, to be able to be there longer, is something that we have to give attention to. We don't have to give much attention to our bodies having a stress reaction, because that will happen. What we need to give the attention to is, how do we help ourselves move into this other zone and be able to be there for meaningful periods of time, which is really 15 minutes is the optimal amount of time to be in a different state. And the more often we can take 15 minutes, I know it's kind of crazy, right? But that is actually the research base, that a 15-minute time out into the green zone can help restore us. And the more times a day we do that, the more we're going to be able to have the antidote to the stress. So the first one that I'm sure has had lots and lots and lots of research is meditation. What they're really talking about here is not that we have to kind of go into a trance, but it's the ability to practice the breathing that allows us to kind of come into that state of awareness of the present moment, and that in the present moment, all is well. Even if you're worried about what's going to happen in the meeting you're having in 5 minutes, in the scan you're having in an hour. Even if those things happen, if you can for 5 minutes, practice being in the moment and breathing and allowing your body to know you're okay in this moment, that makes a difference. So again, it's awareness of the present moment. There are some great apps you can put on your phone that have breathing meditations in them. Some of you may know these. I use Insight Timer. I have a lot of clients who use the Calm app. And there are others as well. Just having your phone remind you to do it and doing 5 minutes of breathing makes a difference. Jo Marie, you've already helped us remember that yoga or Tai Chi are also research-based ways that we can, again, come into the present moment and help our bodies have a sense of relaxation. Now, of course, you're going to need to be very mindful of what's going on with your body at the moment. I mean, we're not talking about, some like crazy asanas, but the way in which you can just kind of, a yoga pose can be a very relaxed pose of just holding it, and again, helping yourself come into the moment. Tai Chi is a beautiful practice that is very slow, very meditative, and very breathing oriented. And again, even if you do it with somebody online, you do it for 5 minutes in the morning, or you do it for 5 minutes at night, any one of these will help you come into that physical green zone. Physical exercise, Vaso, you brought this up, taking a walk, doing some exercise. Physical exercise is good as long as it's modest. So the research base says this will help you, but not if you're trying to push yourself to achieve something, but a walk, something that feels good about stretching, that helps. Prayer has a research base that helps us be in the green zone, as long as, this is a great caveat, as long as your understanding of the divine is a loving and benevolent one. If your understanding of God is a vengeful, or a God that's kind of looking at you, trying to figure out if you're naughty or nice, that's not as helpful. But if you pray to a loving God, it is very beneficial for you. Being in a loving relationship, you've all talked about whether it's children or grandchildren or extended family, or even, a sense of those who have gone before us, with whom we still feel great depths of love. All of that helps us, and caring for others. So the work of reaching out beyond ourselves makes a difference. I personally love this. That having a pet, a cat, a dog, a rabbit, a guinea pig, a horse, the research shows that when you stroke your furry friend, it activates their parasympathetic nervous system. They calm down, and because of mirror neurons in us and sort of emotional contagion that happens through nervous systems, when they calm down, we calm down. And then when we calm down, they calm down. So there's really something beautiful about having that really, again, helps our parasympathetic system come online. In one way or another, you have mentioned this: walking in nature, being in nature, I think it's fabulous, Barbara, that people sent you flowers. Having flowers around us, having things that are living, and beautiful, leaning against a tree, touching a tree, holding a plant, forest bathing, all of that makes a real difference. And in fact, they've shown if you live in an urban environment where you don't have access to the real, to the actual out of doors, but if you have pictures of nature around you that you can sort of look at and sink into, if you have house plants, that helps too. All of that makes a difference for our nervous systems. I love this one. Playing music helps. So obviously, we love listening to music, but any kind of playing music, again, activates that part of our nervous system. I've got a couple clients who come from different cultural backgrounds, and they drum. Some of them do some Indian drumming from the continent of India. Some of them do a more contemporary drumming, but playing music, I've got some who work with flutes. I have some who compose music. Again, any kind of playing music helps our nervous system. And then the last one is dancing. If you are physically well enough or you can feel it and you allow your body to move with that, dancing also helps activate the parasympathetic rather than the sympathetic and brings us more into the green zone. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point and kind of come back into the room. Thank you all for being willing to be on that screen share. So what strikes you from that list as you think about your own life and your own practices?
I like to walk. My husband and I try to walk every day. And when COVID was here, we found so many parks that we didn't know about in Pittsburgh because we wanted to go to different places. And I'd really like to continue that this summer because we did that a lot. Well, I guess it wasn't last summer. It was probably COVID was probably the summer before, I guess. But we did a lot of walking in nature. And now we walk around the neighborhood. We try to get out at least once a day. And I like to play pickleball, if any of you have heard of pickleball. So my husband and I play that, and we have a boat on the Allegheny River, and that's just so relaxing to go to our boat club and just sit by the water and have some beautiful sunsets down there. So
you've got a whole checklist of things that help activate that part of your green zone and really allow you that kind of.
Yeah, I've always been pretty active.
But also taking in those good things.
Right. Yeah. So after my surgery, I was anxious to get back and start doing something because being tied down for a while was not part of my personality. So.
Yeah. And I want to welcome Andrea. I'm sorry that I didn't welcome you before when I was on screen share. It was hard to see you. So welcome. I'm wondering, is there anything you'd like to contribute as we're having this conversation?
Hi, I'm so sorry I logged in late. I'm actually an oncology social worker. So I found this through, I don't remember how I found Blending Hearts, and then I found this webinar and I was really interested in it. It helps me hear from patients so that I know how to help my patients in Long Beach, California, where I work. And so, I apologize for logging in late. I missed the first 30 minutes of it, but I will watch the YouTube recording. I know it's going to be uploaded. But just thank you, everybody, for sharing. It really helps me to hear your experiences with managing stress and distress and activating the green zone. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And thanks for your energy and your no worries about logging in late. We're just glad to have you, and such a commitment that you make to caring for those you care for. Thank you. I know we're kind of coming up on the hour here, so let's just go around the room and just take a moment to kind of go back over. We've talked about a whole lot of things here, and I really appreciate the depth of the sharing. What's one thing that you're taking away from this conversation for yourself as you kind of think about your journey forward? You know, whoever would like to start, go ahead and jump in.
I think for me, just having this, I mean, I know, meditation and yoga and stuff, but to have a list to keep in like my toolbox for throughout the day of different things that, working in the shelter like I do, some days can get kind of challenging. So just to be able to take 15 minutes and, go in and, meditate a little bit or pray, do a little stretching, just to have all of this in my toolbox things, and I'm doing the part also that they're running this time, and the what was the other, the mindfulness and
The
relaxation.
mindfulness and relaxation classes we have.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm learning all kinds of ways that I can incorporate all of these into my life, and just have those extra tools in my toolbox to, because I'll be, you know, when I have my CT scans on Thursday, I have to have 2 of them. So I sure will be meditating a lot while I'm, you know, laying there. So, but yeah, and just to actually, you know, hear other stories of people who I'm a mentor, peer support mentor with the Anal Cancer Foundation. And I'm working with a lady who she just finished her treatments and had her 3-month scan. And she was declared NED. And it's so nice to be able to, first of all, hear the story of somebody that's going through something. I mean, and our stories are identical on how, you know, all of this came about. But to also walk somebody through it because of the experience that I had, and to be able to give them pointers and how to, you know, and I've directed her to the Lending Hearts website. And so it's just, I mean, there's all kinds of ways that I can use this, and not even for cancer related things, but any kind of stressors that, you know, that I face. And, you know, it's not, I say, you know, I really don't have, except for just the health stuff that I go through. Everything else in my life is, you know, pretty good right now, but just to have these tools to be able to not get so anxious all the time, because I used to feel when I was younger, I was continuously had all this anxiety and pressure in my chest, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know. And when I grew up, that was not anything that we ever talked about in my house. Like, you know, no, you're not stressed. Everything is going the way it should go. But, you know, as I've gotten older, I realized that a lot of the anxiety, I think some of it is a learned behavior because of the way I grew up and the way I was raised. And I just need to have these tools to be able to, as an adult now, I'm, you know, 55, as an adult, to just be able to do this and to enjoy my life and not be so anxious and stressed all the time.
Thank you. And they're practices, right? We just have to keep practicing.
Mhm.
Practicing.
Yep.
Yeah. Anybody else? Something you're taking away from the conversation tonight for yourself?
I didn't realize how much the is it the parasympathetic can affect, or the sympathetic can affect the parasympathetic. So I had no idea. I mean, I knew stress was not a good thing. It goes along with depression, but I guess I didn't really realize how some of the things that were up on the screen that it can actually affect was very interesting. And the fact that you had prayer on there, I'm a Catholic, and it's gotten me through a lot. Saying the rosary and, you know, just asking, help me to get through this day. And that's really helped a lot too. So a lot of things that I knew were reinforced by you, and a lot of things that I didn't realize was very interesting.
Along those lines, I feel like so much is the need for habit forming. If you're not doing it already, or taking something new and trying to implement it in, so that maybe it becomes just a given and you find yourself doing it. I'm guilty that I have to give myself that early bit in the morning before everybody arises, because once the day is off and running for everybody, I feel like I have a battle shield, and I'm just constantly using it to deflect what's being thrown. And I honestly, I know this sounds so silly, but I find that you just forget to breathe. And that's why
it's
when
not
you,
silly at all. Yeah.
and you're just going through the motions. And then, like I said, when I crawl into bed, like that huge sigh, and it's like that breath that comes in and fills you up, and then I'm out. I'm just out. But it's like, okay, I should really, set that timer for 5 minutes at lunchtime and just try to tune things out. And I think that's on me to try to develop that habit. I have to do that.
Yeah. Even stepping outside at lunch for 5 minutes, right? It
Yeah.
makes a difference to just, again, what it's really about is helping ourselves shift on a kind of regular basis into that other zone, and knowing that one of the things our nervous system loves is, along with regularity, is variety of experiences. And this is a beautiful one you provide, Vaso, the variety of experiences through Lending Heart, as Jill Marie said, to put into people's toolkits. It's not just one thing we do. So thank you to you.
No, I really appreciate that. But I can't thank you enough for bringing your beautiful conversation to us tonight. So meaningful. And I do look forward to the others taking part online and watching it back. So thank you for your time and for everybody joining us tonight. Really appreciate everybody's feedback.
Thank you so much for having this tonight.
Thank you. It was very interesting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, wishing everybody a good evening and a beautiful summer.
You
and
too.
Lovely falling into bed at the end of the day. You've done it, Vaso.
Yeah.
Getting close to that time now.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Have a good evening.
Uh-huh.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.